This exercise is a great way to begin your movement series. If you're doing back work, if you're getting ready for back work, really any kind of work, this breathing series is wonderful because it gives you, it's a very fundamental exercise, a fundamental learning tool before you go into any kind of movement, but it also warms the body up and it gets it ready and prepared for movement. So basically, when we start to move, oftentimes our breath is held in either because we're thinking, because we're trying to figure out what the movement is. So we hold our breath often. So this will give you a chance to focus on your breath first before you do your movement. And then also when we breathe, normally, and you can do this with me, if you put your hand on your chest and then you put a hand on your belly, and if you're laying down, I'm standing right now, but you can do this laying down if you want a little more focus, or you can do this sitting also. And if you close your eyes and just take some deep breaths. And what I'm trying to notice is I'm trying to notice where I breathe first. So a lot of times, many of us will actually breathe in the chest and out of the chest, or in through the belly and out through the belly, or kind of a combination of the two. And what I want you to change and see if you can move is your breath more into your back space, into your back lungs, the posterior side of your body, and see if you can get that part of your body to expand the same way that we can get breath to expand here. So what I'm going to do with my hands in that same position after I've sort of figured out where my breathing goes naturally is I'm going to try to transfer it. And this doesn't mean that you're going to breathe this way all the time. This means that you are learning how to move breath throughout your body so that you can change your breath according to what your needs are. And that breath, when it's moved into different parts of the body, gives us more space. More space gives us more mobility, more blood flow. So it kind of enlivens that part of the body. And as humans, we are mostly frontal. And so we breathe frontal, we're focused frontal, and our backside gets not as much attention as the front. So what I'm going to do here with my hands in that same position is I'm actually going to restrict the breath going into my hands. And so when I try to breathe, I'm going to push my hands down towards the center of my body and try to get that breath to go into my back space. So I'm going to inhale. And what I'm doing is I'm trying to inflate this section of my back. I'm trying to get that back space to really find some expansion. And this is really good if you do this part laying down, because you have gravity to help kind of press your hands down, and then you feel you have a tactile cue, a tactile part teaching you where you feel your back expanding onto the floor or onto your mat. So another way you can do this with your hands is if you put your hands here. So I'm going to kind of put my fingers a little bit forward, like in the middle of my rib cage. And then I have my thumbs on my back, or you can flip it and do it this direction also. And I want to try to expand my hands. So I'm going to try to take a big breath in and get that breath back there to expand. And then I'm going to exhale. And I'm going to let that breath deflate. I'm going to do that again. So I'm using my hands. I'm actually hugging my body in a pretty good hug. And then as I breathe, my hands move. My hands aren't moving my body is moving my hands. So my lungs are expanding wider and deflating. And this is something that is a practiced thing. So that if you feel like, oh my God, I have no idea what she's talking about, and I get like a tiny little bit of breath back there, that's fine. That's totally fine. You do what you can for as long as you can until you start to get the hang of it, until you start to understand, oh yeah, I can get some breath back there. And then you increase that breath. So say I take an inhale of 3. I'm going to hold that breath in, then I'm going to exhale for 3. I'm going to hold it, and I'm going to inhale for 3. And I'm going to hold it, and I'm going to exhale for 3. Start there. Then you can increase it. Increase it to 5. Increase it to 7. Increase it to 12. Increase it to 20. You can really expand your homework. Yeah? You can let that breath get bigger and bigger. And why? So this is a warm-up for your back is why I'm giving it to you, but it's a warm-up for all movement. And just also, like I said earlier, a fundamental learning block in order to facilitate better movement for whatever else you do. So why do we take breath back here? In Pilates specifically, why are we asking people to breathe in the posterior body? And the reason is because number one, because mostly we are breathing frontal. So we don't get a lot of space and expansion in our back. Number two, and one of the biggest reasons that I believe that we ask for that posterior breath in Pilates specifically is because we're asking you to hold your abdominals and your core and your center while you move. So when we do that, sometimes it stops our breath. So our breath has to go somewhere. We have to maintain breathing for dynamic movement, for blood flow, for all kinds of things. So we have to put it somewhere, and we're putting it in the back. And so if I'm holding my core and my breath is going back here, what happens when the breath goes into the back and you get some more expansion in the posterior body is that your spine and your ribs get more space. Yeah, you're expanding and you're opening and you're stretching all of those intercostal muscles and all of those back muscles that get fairly tight trying to hold you together. And so if our breath expands that back body, gives us more space, then what happens is more space is going to equal more mobility and more range of motion, more capacity for different types of movement, which is amazing. Most of the time, if you do like a traditional roll up in Pilates, you're on the ground flat, you lift your head and you try to get up. Most of the time, in my experience, people can't do it. And they say, oh my God, my abs are so weak. And I say, that's not the only factor, if any. The fact is our backs are tight. Our backs are stuck. And if we don't have that range, then how are we expected to come all the way up and roll all the way down? We have to articulate through that spine like a snake. And if we can't do that, then we need some stretch. We need some range of motion in there. So this is a great starting point for anything like that. So breath in the back, it gives us a place to put air while we hold our abdominals. And then the second thing is it gives us more space and more length, which in turn, thirdly, gives us more range of motion, more mobility, and that is what we are looking for. So again, hands, you can lay down, you can sit, or you can stand. You can use your hands on the chest and the belly to experience where your breath goes naturally, and then you try to change it and hold those hands down and kind of try to force that air a little bit back into your posterior body. And then, once you've done that, try to get your hands again and see if you can get some expansion in there on a timely journey. So you're going to start with 3 counts breathing in and holding, and 3 counts out and holding. And then you're going to expand that to 5 counts, to 7 counts, to 12 counts, wherever it takes you. And you'll experience this joy of freedom and range of motion in your spine. So I hope that helps. This month is a big month for me, doing a lot of focus on back work, and not just spinal work, but also the whole back body. And so I think it's important to begin with one of the fundamentals, which is breathing. And just breathing is good for focus and for dynamicism and all kinds of things, but it's a big help when you're trying to get range of motion in your back body. Breath is key.